Welcome to today's live reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Mysteries of Creation. And we are reading from the chapter 2 at the moment, The Lord in the Heart. So let's begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We were on the verse number 14 at the time we left the reading last time. Let's continue from there. Chapter 2, verse 14, Shukdev went on, spiritual neophytes who are still attracted to material enjoyment cannot concentrate upon Paramatma. They must first become purified by performing their prescribed duties, and after retiring they should take to Virat Roop meditation. Only when attraction for the Lord awakens can they commence Paramatma meditation. Parikshit wanted to know how the accomplished yogi who had successfully meditated on the Paramatma should prepare to die. Chapter 2, verse 15, the sage said, when the yogi is ready to leave his body, he should not be concerned about the time or place. He should stay where he is, comfortable, and keep his mind and senses under the control by continuously meditating on Vishnu. Many sages looked surprised. Parikshit guessed the reason. Shukadev's statement went against conventional yoga system. Placing his palms together, he said, Master, kindly explain why the Vedas give specific recommendations about the time of a yogi's departure. If this is not important, Shukadev replied, these strictures are only necessary for yogis who still have traces of material desires in their hearts. They are not important for the one who has awakened an attraction for the Lord. In this respect, Krishna reassured your grandfather when he said, for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain because of his constant engagement in devotional service. Therefore, the Paramatma realized yogi does not need to worry about the time and place of death. Chapter 2, verse 16. I think there is a note attached to this last verse I finished, so let me give you. Okay, if you are interested, you can look in Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 8, text 14, if you want to further read about the reassurance which Lord gave to Arjuna, that verse. Now, chapter 2, verse 16, Shukadev described how the yogi should prepare for returning to the spiritual world. To fully concentrate upon Vishnu, the yogi must merge his mind into the self and then, by means of pure intelligence, merge the self into the supersoul. By doing so, he will experience full satisfaction and bliss, thus being purified of even the potential for material hankering. Parikshit was perplexed. Merging the mind into the self by pure intelligence and the self into the supersoul, what did it mean? Noting his bewilderment, Shukadev explained, the tendency of the mind is to accept and reject activities based on sense gratification. However, the self is Krishna's eternal servant. Thus, merging the mind into the self means training the mind to accept and reject everything according to the Lord's instructions. To merge the self into the supersoul means to be immersed in Krishna's loving service. And to do some further reading on this, you can refer to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 2, verse 38, the verse and the purport. How is this merging into him, asked Parikshit. Because the Lord and his service are on the absolute plane, said Shukadev. They are identical. Chapter 2, verse 17. Shukadev continued to explain how one can achieve liberation. In the material world, even Brahma and all the gods are subject to devastating time. This is because they are trapped by false ego and the three modes of nature. However, a devotee who experiences love of Krishna attains a spiritual body free of all these influences. Master, what are the characteristics of such devotees? Asked Parikshit. Chapter 2, verse 18 now. The pure devotees see all the things connected to Vishnu. They avoid atheistic speculation and live in harmony with the Lord's will. They do not propagate false teachings or exploit anything or anyone. Thus, they do not create problems for themselves or others. Rather, they engage everything in Krishna's service, worshipping him at every moment with all their hearts. How do such elevated yogis leave their bodies? Chapter 2, verses 19 to 21. Once they achieve the Brahman realization and are thus freed of material side, they bring the life air up through the body chakras by the power of mystic meditation. And if you want to read further on it, there is a little bit reference in the notes. I will read that to you. These are the 7 primary chakras. The root chakra, technically called the Mooladhara chakra, is at the base of the spine. The Swadhisthana chakra is situated in the sacral region. Above that is the Manipurak chakra at the solar plexus. In the region of the heart is the Anahat chakra, and the Vishuddha chakra lies in the throat. The Agya chakra or the Ajna chakra is at the brow, and the Sahasra chakra is on the crown of the head. Shukadev gave detailed description of how the yogis block the different bodily orifices and then by intelligence gradually search out the different chakras to raise the life air. He concluded his description. Finally, the meditative yogi forces the life air out through the crown of the head, known as the Brahma Randhra. He then rises to the spiritual kingdom. Do all yogis reach the spiritual world? Chapter 2, verse 22-23 now. No, those who have only mastered Virat Roop meditation are still attracted by the wonders of the higher planets. Therefore, they go there and enjoy the 8 mystic powers. There's some reference to it. These are Anima Siddhi, becoming as small as an atom. Laghima Siddhi, becoming lighter than the feather. Prapti Siddhi, the power to take whatever one wants from anywhere. Mahima Siddhi, becoming unlimitedly heavy. Ishitva Siddhi, the ability to create wonderful things or destroy anything at will. Vashitva Siddhi, the power to control the material elements. Prakamya Siddhi, the ability to do anything. And Kamavasyita Siddhi, the ability to assume any shape or form. Nevertheless, they are not like ordinary conditioned souls. Because of their many years of austerity and worship of the Lord, they acquire subtle bodies able to travel anywhere within or even outside of the material universe. Do they ever attain the Lord's abode? Now from chapter 2, verses 24 to 26. After experiencing the pleasures of the higher planets, they eventually go there. Shukadev explained that these yogis travel via the Milky Way to the planet of Vaishvanara, where they are purified by the fire god. From there, they go to the Shishumara constellation, where the Kshirodakshai Vishnu resides. This is the pivot of the material universe. Sometimes said to be the Garbhodakshai, Vishnu's navel. In that constellation, the yogi first goes to the Mahaloka where Bhrigu Muni resides. He lives there for one of Brahma's days, or 4,300 billion solar years. So Brahma's day is equal to 4,300 billion solar years, and during that time the Srishti is alive. When Brahma goes to sleep, everything is annihilated. At the end of this day, when there is a total devastation of the universe, he travels with other purified souls in special airplanes to Brahma's own planet, Satyalok, where he lives for over 15 trillion solar years. The advanced materialists who perform such sacrifices can reach the planet called Vaishvanara, a fiery planet similar to the sun. On this planet, which is situated on the way to Brahmalok, the topmost planet in the universe, such an advanced materialist can free himself from all traces of vice and its effects. When such a materialist is purified, he can rise to the orbit of the pole star, the Dhruvalok. Within this orbit, which is called the Shishumara Chakra, are situated the Aditya Lokas and the Vaikuntha planet within this universe. This is from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 5, text 22. Now, chapter 227 of this book we are resuming, which is from Srimad Bhagavatam. Eventually, even Brahma's planet is destroyed. However, in Satyalok, there is no lamentation, old age, bereavement, suffering, or fear. Sometimes, however, the residents experience mental suffering because of the compassion they feel for the conditioned souls who suffer unsurpassable miseries due to the spiritual ignorance. Now from chapter 2, verses 28 to 29 of Mysteries of Creation from Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadev described how after reaching Satyalok, the yogi can either remain there until the end of Brahma's life and return to the spiritual world with him, or return to the spiritual world before that time. If he chooses the latter option, he must pass through the 7 coverings of the universe: earth, water, fire, air, ether, false ego, and Mahat Tattva. As he travels through each layer, he assumes a body made of that element to fully experience the sense objects associated with it. For example, passing through the earth layer, he smells all aromas. As he travels through the watery layer, he experiences all different tastes. As he goes through the fire layer, he sees every kind of form. And passing through the air layer, he feels every touch sensation. As he goes through the ethereal layer, he hears all kinds of sounds. In this way, he becomes satiated with every experience available in the material universe. Chapter 2, verse 30, Shukadev continued, the yogi then reaches the layer of false ego, in which there are 3 different strands. False ego in the modes of ignorance, passion, and goodness. As he passes through the false ego in ignorance, he gives up all lingering attachment for the sense objects. When he passes through the false ego in passion, he stops identifying with the senses. Finally, he passes through the false ego in goodness. He relinquishes the material mind. In other words, he gives up the tendency to accept and reject things based on the consideration of his own happiness. Then the yogi attains his pure consciousness, in which he thinks only of Krishna's pleasure. And you can look at Bhagavad-Gita chapter 15 verse 1 and its purport to read further about it. Shukadev continued, the final layer the yogi passes through that of Mahat Tattva, which he merges into the Pradhana. Parikshit had to consider this carefully. He knew Pradhana to be the initial inert stage of material existence. The Lord glances over Pradhan to inject it with time, the living beings and their destinies. Then the Mahat Tattva comes into being, in which the three modes of nature act and from which the material creation comes about. I'll repeat that. Parikshit had to consider this carefully. He knew Pradhan to be the initial inert stage of material existence. The Lord glances over Pradhan to inject it with time, the living beings and their destinies. Then the Mahat Tattva comes into being, in which the three modes of nature act, vis-a-vis goodness, passion and ignorance, and from which the material creation comes about. Merging the Mahat Tattva back into the Pradhan means becoming free from the influence of time and the three modes of nature, which are dormant within Pradhan. The living being is then set to approach the eternal spiritual sky, the Brahman. And to further read about it, you can look at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Verse 10, Purport. Now, Chapter 2, Verses 31 and 32, Shukadev concluded, after the yogi's purified consciousness reaches the spiritual sky, he can enter one of the spiritual Vaikuntha planets to associate with the Supreme Person, Lord, personally, thereby experiencing complete bliss and knowledge in his loving service. Only then is he sure to never again become attracted by the material energy. My dear king, know that everything I have told you is directly in accord with what was previously described by Narayan to Brahma. As Shukadev spoke, everyone listened in complete silence. The entire audience had their eyes fixed upon the young sage. Chapter 2, verse 33. Having answered Parikshit's question about how yogis who do not accept Krishna's personal form can attain his spiritual kingdom, Shukadev returned to his initial instructions regarding the direct path of devotional service to the Lord, which is very important for all of us in the Kali Yuga. The processes I have just explained can help one reach the stage of devotion to the Lord after many years, but they are fraught with difficulty. However, the devotional practices of hearing, glorifying and remembering Krishna are superlatively auspicious. They are easy, simply natural and free from trouble. Furthermore, the practitioner immediately experiences happiness. And to read further about it, you can see Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 12, verses 3 to 5, and also Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 17, verse 21. Chapter 2, verse 34 of Bhagavatam. Now again, Shukadev appeared effulgent as he melodically sang Sanskrit verses to the mesmerized Parikshit. Lord Brahma is the greatest authority in the material world. He was personally instructed in spiritual truths by Vishnu himself. Furthermore, he later studied the Vedas with great attention, trying to determine their real purpose. After scrutinizing them 3 times, he ascertained that surrendering to Krishna and rendering him loving service is the perfection of all religious practice. Chapter 2, verse 35. Why is this so beneficial? Asked Parikshit. Shukadev explained that Krishna resides in the heart along with the individual soul. When we regularly hear and chant about Krishna, he guides our intelligence to see his loving hand always. And Krishna confirms it in Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 12, verses 3 to 5. We will resume our reading from here onwards tomorrow. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.